Hello everyone, it's Katie. So the other day we made a couple of basic translucent canes, and it's for a project that I'm going to do. I have one more I want to make, and then we'll begin making the project. So right now I have some Cernit, because the rest of these I made out of Cernit translucent. Cernit translucent does look quite white when it's raw, but it bakes up really nicely. These I only baked for 10 minutes, plus they're pretty thick. But anyways, so I have it in a ball here. It's nicely conditioned already, and I'm going to be making a flower that we're going to use all of these in one project that kind of looks like this, the petal. So it's going to be white and translucent, but again, you can use whatever colors you want. And so all we need to do, translucent flowers are super easy to do. So all we need to do is create a petal shape, whatever shape you want to create. We're going to be defining it a little bit more later, but create a petal shape. And you want to go all the way down the length, because if you just round your ends and leave your center really square or not shaped correctly, when you cut into the center part, your petals are going to look different. So make sure you're shaping the whole length or width of it. But we're going to be modifying this in a few minutes anyway, so I just need a basic petal shape. And I hope this is enough. This should be enough. Okay. And then I want to put 3 things inside of it with white. So take your blade, and I'm going to do 3, so I'm going to cut it in half all the way down, just because I find it's easier than just slicing a slit in and trying to put this thing in. So let's do 1 down the middle, and then I want to do 2 smaller ones, but again I'm going to slice all the way down, just because I find it easier to do that way. Okay. And then we're going to need some white. And this is where it's hard to see on camera, the difference between the white and the translucent, just because they're so similar when they're not baked. So I'm going to grab some white, and I think at the top I want to have some little circles. So what we need to do is make a sausage about the size that you want for your circles. I don't know what that is. I don't want that in it. And I want 3 that need to be the height of this, so I'm getting a sausage ready. Set that aside. And then we're going to need a strip of white clay. And again, I just conditioned these, but I put them in a bag to keep the, hopefully keep the lint and dog hair and stuff from my basement off. Let's see if that's enough. So the thickness of these and the outside wrapping and the white circles is really going to depend on you and your judging. So this is on 0 right now. The outside wrapping I do want fairly thick, but I don't think I want these lines as thick as this right now. So let me bring this down. And again, I usually just look at it. And sometimes when it's done, like if I reduce it smaller, the thickness looks different. So it takes some playing. And I'm not always perfectly happy with the thickness of it either. I would have been like, oh man, I would have gone a little thicker or a little thinner on that. So right now I have it on a setting 3, which, if I remember, this is a 4 and a 5. I think the translucent's on a 4 and the thing's on a 5. And I think these were setting 3. So I don't, right, was that setting 3? Yeah, so I think I'm going to do a 4 actually. Okay, let's start with the middle one. So let's separate these. And now I want to cut a strip about that wide. Doesn't need to be perfect. Keep that. So for these 2 center ones, I want to get this round to fit in the middle, right, of the center ones. Now, to do that, an easier way to do that is to take like a needle tool or something and put it where you want your round to be, that little round ball. So that's my petal shape. I want my first one about here, and then I want my other 2 a little further down. So my first one's going to go way up here. So I think what I'm going to do is just impress into this like that on one side, and do the same thing on the other side. That way we have a little indent for that round circle to sit in. And they could be a little bigger than what you plan on, because when we reduce, it's going to close it all up. Something like that, I think, will give it a spot to sit. And then we'll insert the little sausage thingy, little piece of the snake. And then we'll put our 2 pieces back together. Oh, not yet. We got to put a strip in, but take a peek at it, see if it's where you want it. I think that is. So then we're going to put that little strip, and I don't want this going all the way to the end like this. I want it going right below that. So just set that right below it. Now I'm just looking for the thickness this sheet is, and for the size this round is. I think I want the round a little bigger, actually. The little sausage. I think I want it a little fatter than that. And again, it's more just kind of playing, and again, you can use scrap clays for practicing with canes. You don't need to use beautiful clay every time. You can practice with scraps, and if they don't work out, it's not the end of the world. And in what I plan on making, it's going to be, I don't want these to be quite, you know, crazy standout-ish. So anyways, so I'm going to line it back up. Cut this white off. Kind of flatten my circle. Let me cut this white off. I want that circle to stay circle, so flattened it a little bit. I don't want to flatten it. Sorry, washer's going. Laundry day. Tuesday, my day off. It's laundry day. Okay, and then we got to do the same thing for these other two. So I'm just kind of setting it back together. Okay, and then I need to figure out where I want my other dots to go. So this one I want down there. This one I want, again, somewhere down here. But in life, nothing's perfect. Nothing's exact, you know, in nature. So they don't need to be perfect. You can make these skinnier or smaller circles, or a thinner sheet. I know it sounds so loud, just the washer right above me. I think that will be good. So let me get a sheet. That piece should be fine. There. And again, I don't want it to go all the way up. I just want it to be right below the circle. I'm trying to show it on camera, but it doesn't quite work, so I'm just going to chop it off. And then I want to put a little ball in it, and do, if I want it a little smaller, I'll make it a little smaller than the one before. But either way, and your ends don't have to be perfect, because when you reduce this, that's where your distortion's going to be. So don't worry about cutting it so perfectly. And set it back together. Like that. And same thing on the other side. So, indent. Where you want your ball. Same thing on this side, something like that. And you could use the end of a paintbrush, you could use any kind of round thing to make an indent. Oh, you know why it sounds, my washer sounds so loud? I'm doing a big load of towels. That's why. Get another sheet. Of your white. So yes, we're making one petal right now, and then we're going to reduce it down to make smaller petals, and then we'll put them all together and backfill them. So right under where your circle is going to be, your sausage. Cut off any excess. It's been a while since I've made like an actual flower cane. This is the first one in 4 or 5 months, so it's definitely been a while. My thing's a little fatter on that side. Set in your little sausage. And I do want it right at the bottom of that white sheet, so. Okay, and then kind of match them all back up. Flip it around, look at both sides, make sure it's even up and down, okay? So that is our petal, and we can push it back together just a little bit. Shape it just a little bit. Again. Because we're going to be reducing this down in a minute. Okay, and then we need to take a sheet of white and we're going to wrap this whole thing in some white. Now, again, what did I just do that at? I did the inside at a 4, and the outside I might do in a 3, so it's a little wider than these inside stamens. So I don't know how much I'm going to need. Let me run this out on a 3 and see if it's enough to go around it. Nope, not enough. Okay, I'm going to roll out some more. Okay, I'm going to get this rolled out on a 3 so we can wrap it around. Okay, so now I have this out on a setting 3. Should be enough to wrap around. I'm going to cut one straight line, just to get off all these raggedy edges. And then we'll set we need it to be this wide, so set your piece next to it. The widest part, this is a little fatter up here, so maybe I'll do it right there. And it's okay if you don't cut it perfectly. Because we can trim it off after. I'd rather have it be a little bit wide, this strip, than a little narrow. Okay, and we're going to wrap it around the whole thing. So if you keep one edge flush, then if the other edge overhangs, you only have to trim off one side. Okay, so one edge basically flush, one edge is overhanging, and then you can just trim off one side. Now this is my really old blade, so it's quite dull. But again, don't worry about these ends because these are going to be your distorted ends. Once we start reducing this down. So if there's any way I can save, I do try to save it. Okay, and then we have our petal made. Now we just need 5 or 6 of them, right? So now comes the time to reduce it down to get multiple petals. And obviously the bigger you start with to start is easier when we get there. Now, reducing a shape like this can be hard. So if you make this into a triangle, it can be easier for people. But pretty much you just want to follow your, so let's make it a triangle. That's just easier for people. So this is obviously our point, and we're going to push down from the point down, because we can remake this round. Clay you can manipulate into any shape you want. Okay, so now it's becoming a triangle, and then just flip it onto another one of its surfaces. Start in the middle because we're trying to push the air out, and then you can kind of give the ends a little pull. And then flip it to another side. Start up at the point and work your way down. In the center mainly, just like we do with the round circle. We're trying to push the air out from the center to the openings on the sides. Okay. And we need to get this long enough to cut 6 of these. We can re-round it later. It's not a big deal. So, you know, do a lot of pulling, a lot of stretching. And pushing down towards my board. I'm pushing my fingers like this down towards my board. And then flip. And again. Something up here rattles. Oh, it's my camera stand. Let's see if I tighten it. Yeah. Drives me insane when I'm claying by myself, like off camera. I have the TV on so I don't hear it, but when I'm doing it on camera, I don't have the TV on so I can hear that. It drives me insane. Is that an air bubble down in there? See how dull that blade is? That's crazy. See? So we're already have gotten a lot longer. So this just needs to continue to do that. So I'm going to keep, you know, once you get it moving a little bit, you can pull on it and gain a lot of length that way. You know, flip it around. It's been a while since I've done this. You know, but what we'll do after is we'll reshape these corners and force them to be round. I should have started with more because then I would have more. It's easier to make 6 petals out of it. And it's easier to reduce it later. But if you don't, I didn't want to make a huge cane of this. Okay, so this is all I'm doing. And I'm going to keep doing it until I get enough to cut 6. I tend to make flowers with 6 petals. They just work out better for me. 5 petals, sometimes they look funny to me. So like on my different ones, when I do 5 petals, I feel like they look funny. I still got to work on this flower, but when I do 6 petals, I feel like I get a better, myself. Like I even have a hard time drawing 5 petals. Now these are the ends of the canes, the distorted ends. That I just cut off and baked because I wasn't going to waste any. But I tend to do better when I do 6 than 5. I don't know. For some reason, I just do. So I'm going to keep going with reducing this and the same exact way until I get enough to either cut like 1/2 inch to make 6 or 1 inch or something. It could even be a 1/4 inch. I mean, it'll just be a shorter cane. But just keep working the clay. Okay, that's all we'll keep doing. And I'm pushing down towards my board. I'm not like pulling up, I'm pushing down towards the board. With my fingers as a little triangle. All the way down towards the board. Okay, I'm almost there. And you do want to try to keep it the same thickness. Like right here, this end's a little wider than right here in the middle. So you do want to work to try to keep it. In that case, I'd just probably give that spot a little pull to all keep the same amount of clay in each area. Like right here, you can see right there's a little thinner, and right here is a little thicker, and then it goes root. So, you know, give this spot a little pull or reduce that spot down a little bit more. Okay, so when that's done, I will be back. And I just want to say, guys, you could have forced that into a circle too and reduced it as a circle, not just a triangle. You could have squished the whole thing to make a circle. So you can reduce them really any way you want. I could have reduced that as a teardrop. You just follow the shape of it and kind of stretch it out with that shape. So, but making it a more simple shape is easier for a lot of people. So that's why I just turned it into a triangle. But I could have just squished that teardrop into a petal, squished that pointed part up or into a circle, and reduced it as a circle too. So however you want to do it, just get it done. Okay, so I do have it reduced now enough to cut 6 out. And I have it longer than I need because we have distorted ends that need to come off. So let's try to find where the distortion is, and let's cut it off so we can see what shape up our petal is. Or where our petal, see these, oh crap. I can see the lines. It's hard, it doesn't show up on camera very well. You see the lines? So this is the rounded part that we're going to have to round. So let me check this side too. Can you see them down there? At the bottom of the point, those are where the 3 of those lines connected. So now that means I'm going to have to round this top part off. So pretty much just round a corner off. Just blunt your corners. We're going to make this a teardrop shape now, again. So yeah, we could have taken this original teardrop shape. Let me make it a teardrop shape. And we could have reduced this as a circle just by pushing it up like this and reduced it as a circle like that. Okay? Whatever you want to do. So I'm just rounding the corners by pushing on them. The top 2 corners. I still want the center of the flower kind of pointed. You can also take your 2 fingers and kind of go like this. We can round it on the table a little bit. We just want to force it more into a petal shape. And the point, I do want to kind of get the point in a little bit, so I'm going to push it towards my other hand so I shorten the point. And when we cut this, we can shape them all a little bit more individually instead of having this long sheet or this long snake that we're trying to round. We can shape each one more on its own. Okay. So all we're going to do now is cut. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I actually want to get rid of some of this end distortion, so some more of it if I got that much extra from just playing with it 2 seconds ago. So let's cut off some of that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have a 7th, don't we? So I could potentially go a little more than an inch wide, since I have an extra inch, but I don't think I'm going to. I think we'll just have an extra one. Let me get my better blade out here, because that blade's so dull. And I am getting stuff in my clay, and it's just kind of the way it works. It's hard with this Cernit translucent because it looks so much like the white. But that's really a petal shape right there. That's the one, that's what we just created. That shape. And then with each one, you can a little bit more round it off, do whatever you want with each one. See, like that one's pretty square, so I'm just going to round that one a little bit more. And again, all down this length here. Don't leave this, don't just round the end and leave the center part square. You want to, or you know, those corners, you want to round all the way down the length of this thing. Because when you start cutting your cane and you get into here, if you didn't round it, that's going to be a square petal. Also backfilling. I saw someone, they made a flower the other day on my Facebook site, and it was a really great flower, and on the end it wasn't bad. But if they would have added a couple little sausages of translucent right next to the petals, it would have kept their petals a little more round. They did end up more square flower looking. And it's about the backfilling. If you don't backfill every little spot, the clay is going to want to move into that spot. So I'm not sticking them together right here. I'm just setting them. Just kind of setting them together. It's still distorted and a piece flicked off, but that's okay. So now this is what we have. Basic translucent white flower. Okay. And I am going to want to set them together. I don't want to put any fill between each one of these because I don't want a gap between each petal. But if you want a gap, so there's different ways to do flowers. So there's ones where you have a gap between each flower petal that you would put some translucent in. And then there's ones see, like this has a gap between each petal, whereas this one does, well, this one does too, but it has green fill. This one doesn't have a gap between each petal, and that's what I plan on doing with this. It doesn't have a gap between each petal. Same thing with this one, no gap. So that's what I plan on doing with this. But if you want a gap, then you would put whatever color down in here. So I'm setting them together and I'm looking at both ends to make sure the points match up on both ends. And then I'm going to set these three a little better together. And in real life, I can see the difference between the translucent and the white, but on camera, it's hard to pick it up. which is why a lot of people do use a yellower translucent when they're recording. But why am I going to waste clay just to record? Now I do see we can either have a center in there or we can leave it with no center where all of these match. See how, like, if you put it together well on one side it looks fine, but then you flip it over and this side is not matched up? You need to look at both ends and line up both ends, okay? So, do I want to have like a little white sausage in there for the center? Or do I want to leave it where all of these come in? I think I want to have a little white sausage in there. Now I can take some of this scrap and mix it with some white, and then you'll get a different type of white. I could put all of these together and make something. I think I'm just going to bake a piece so you can see it at some point, but I think I'm just going to take a white sausage, a little one, and that will be the center. Just a white dot in the center. I don't make extravagant centers because to me I find it pointless, because once you reduce it down to like this big, you really can't see any of your detail. If you're going to leave them big canes, that's fine. If you're going to use it on a project and it's huge, that works. But when I reduce them down to smaller than a dime, if I have all these dots and patterns in the center, it really doesn't show up very much. So I tend not to go too complex with my center. So I'm just going to put a little sausage in there. It doesn't need to be anything extravagant. And it's going to be like that, but I don't want to push it too hard until I get some fill in here because of... I don't want to distort any of my petals. I might actually just gently open that and just gently try not to push on my petals too hard because I don't want to distort them right now. Open that. And so I'll begin backfilling some of these so I have a little more stability. So I don't really squish all of my petals. I feel like 3 of these are a little taller than the other 3. Something like that. Okay, so now I just have to get some translucent warmed up and going. What the hell, 2 petals? Oh, it's stuck too. These 2 petals are not wanting to come together quite right, but they're gonna have to do. So now let me get rid of all of these scraps and stuff. And I keep these white translucent scraps. I keep all of these because if you just add a little more white to it, it'll just be a little less opaque of a white. And I use that in my lace canes. So I keep my white and translucent scraps. Okay, so let me get some translucent ready and we'll begin backfilling it so we don't lose our shape. If we were to reduce this right now, we would lose our shape completely. So, and I don't want to, so let me get some translucent out. We'll backfill this guy. Okay, so the way I go about backfilling, and there's a lot of different ways and it depends on how I feel, but pretty much you just got to fill it all in. So an easy way to do it is to take your 2 fingers so you form a triangle with the board and just push down and make a little sausage into a triangle. And you can use a color too, you don't have to use translucent. Okay, so now we have a kind of a triangle shape here, but this is a blunted triangle. I need it to get pointier. So then I'm going to just begin pulling that point kind of up a little bit, and I'll show you in a second to make it even pointier so it really fits down in there, as far down as I can get it down in there. See how much pointier that is? And that way, hopefully, I can jam it down in there as far as I can. I even want to go a little bit more. Stick it, we see, way down in there. And kind of gently pat it. Look at both sides. Gently pat it down in there, because again, you don't want to be messing with flattening the petals on the other side while you're working on this side. So just get it in there gently, and then work on the next ones. So get them all kind of in there so you're not flattening. This one's a really pointed one, so I want to get that one in. This one's more shallow. Just get them in there so you're not like distorting other petals while you're working. We can fudge with it more later. You just want to get it in there. And the rest aren't as pointy. So then I can take my 2 fingers and push it back down my board to make it a little more blunt. And just kind of set them in there. Don't worry about it, it's in there, so don't, just get it in there pretty much, because you'll be messing with your other stuff if you don't. Just get it down in there. We'll make it fit better in a second. So again, take some translucent. Make a sausage. Start making a triangle with your 2 fingers like that. Push down towards your board. And you'll begin forming this clay into a triangle shape. And just kind of set them down in there, depending how pointy they need to be for each petal. Because we tried to make them similar, they're not. That one I might need to make a little more pointy. Not my favorite part, but it's a necessary evil. It's got to be done if we want to keep a flower shape. Oh, I got one more. Okay, and then there's a way you can also split the triangle down the center and fold it over. Like this. And we'll fill that center part with a sausage, or you could put a sausage on the end. A little clay sausage on the end or in the middle, it doesn't really matter. Just, you got to fill in every little part. Because we're, you know, if I left this, if I just wrapped it right now in a full layer out round, if I left, you see that, like right here, you see that triangle? If I put a wrapping, right now my petal would want to push out into that, and it would become a triangle petal, not a round petal. So those are the spots I'm talking about that you gotta fill in. Your flower wants to go, or your petal is going to go wherever you don't have this translucent. So you got to take your time to fill it in. A lot of people get really square or triangle looking corners to their flower petals, and it's because they're not spending enough time backfilling. Or they're not shaping all the way down the length of their petal. Now my translucent is starting to get a little stiff here, so it's kind of cracking on me. That's okay. I have it in a bag in my lap, so it keeps it warm. But then once you stop messing with it for a little while, or it's cold in my basement right now. It is cold. It's actually, it's 40 degrees out today, which is warm for Vermont right now this time of year. It's super warm, so I'm kind of excited. But my basement's still only 56. I have my little space heater on here, down here going. Now it's up to 60. So I really feel like taking your time with the backfilling is very important. Okay. Oop, I just threw it. Okay. So now that we got that part done, we can cut off any of this. Well, no, maybe I should leave that for now. Now we need to make little pieces to fit down in these. So whether it's a sausage or another triangle, doesn't really matter. You just got to get it all filled to the height of the petals. So I'm just going to probably do like little skinny triangles down in here. So either way, I would have done sausage beside these triangles, or a little triangle inside the triangle. Okay, to fill that in. And there's great, already really good videos on reduction techniques. So reducing polymer clay, how to reduce polymer clay on YouTube, you know, check that out. And there's already good videos on backfilling, you know, polymer clay canes, whatever. There's tons of them. So, you know, see how other people do it. I do it multiple ways myself. I don't do it the same way every single time. It just kind of depends on my mood. So, you know, watch a bunch of videos and see what way looks like it would be the best for you, and do it that way. Do I have one more? One more. And then we'll begin slicing off. Actually, I wanted to put a slight indent in the petals. Is what I was gonna do. Once I get it all to where I can touch this without distorting my petal shape. Oh, I missed one. I missed one. Okay. And I will also cut this end off in a second. These tall parts, like they don't need to be there at all. Okay, so now that we got that done, I wanted to make slight indents in the tips of the petals. So on one side I wanted to depress just a hair. Same thing on the other side, and then meet down the middle. And then here. So I know it's kind of in the center. So if you do one side, then flip it and look at the other side so you know where the middle is. Roughly the middle. And I don't want a big indent here, just a little one. And then meet them down the middle. See, I got one there and one there. And then we'll meet in the middle. And again, be careful because you don't want to be squishing things too much if you can help it. But now we got our backfill in there, so it'll help us keep from distorting our petal shapes as much. Okay, and then to keep that there, you'll take a small little sausage of translucent and put it in each one of those indents. Otherwise, they will fill in too. So you gotta fill everything that you want to keep. Any shape you want to keep, you gotta surround it in translucent. See, my translucent's getting a little... I mean, I just conditioned this before the video, but it's also been about an hour. And I don't cut every part out because then you can make it with me. So again, just lay a small little sausage down in there. In that little groove you make. And that will help keep that little indent. More. Okay. Now I'm going to cut off, if this is way out from my petal, I'm going to kind of cut it off. Make sure you don't cut into your petal. So do it on one side and kind of go away from your cane, and then we'll do it on the other side too. Because you can't really see if you're cutting straight down or not. Do this side. And again, kind of go away from your petal. So I don't need all this extra translucent on here. Keep all that for another project. The next thing we need to do is just wrap the whole thing in a layer of translucent. So I usually do setting 0 and we'll wrap the whole thing. So let me get that rolled out. Okay, so this should be enough to make it around. I just checked. So again, cut it roughly. Again, a little longer is better than a little shorter. We can always trim it off and then just wrap it around. Oh, look, I missed one. I think I just saw that. Missed one of my indents. Oh, my lighter. Right there. That would have sucked. Well, I mean, it wouldn't have been that noticeable, but... Or maybe I cut it off. Maybe it came off when I was cutting. So I just tend to do 0 just because, but you don't need to. But you do want to wrap it all around so that way your you have one solid layer on the outside. And essentially, our cane is built. It just needs to be reduced, and then I will bake an end slice to show you. So we've reduced a circle many times. I mean, you can give it a good squish in the middle, but either way, start in the center, because we have a detailed pattern in here, though you can't see it much. We do, and we don't want to be making things super wonky. So as much as you can, start in the center. Again, we want to push all this air out in these gaps through the gaps on the end. We don't want to trap them in the center. So I don't tend to roll because I don't want to mess it up. Now, whatever clay is softer is going to move first, so you're going to get more distortion of the softer clay. So once you have a little waist, start on the end, or start in the middle and work your way up to the end. And you can pull, if a clay is not moving as much, you can pull it up to the end there. You can try, but really I don't worry about it too much. You're always going to get to some distortion. Hopefully, if we backfilled correctly, we'll have shapes. We'll keep our slightly rounded shapes of our petals. Okay, and then start again back in the middle and work your way up to the edge. If any of it's not moving as fast, again, you can pull it up a little bit. And once you do this once or twice, it moves fast. It's just got to get the center we haven't touched in a while, those petals, so they got to get warmed up for a second here. And then once I'm done, then I do one quick roll just to get my fingerprints out. And then again, I start back in the center. Start working up to the end. Some people do more of this squishing thing. I mean, I guess you could do that, but I can't put equal pressure all the way around. So I have an easier time. I do better this way. But again, hey, your way is your way. Do it your way. I'm not perfect. I'm not, you know, especially trained in any of this, you know. I've just kind of figured it out as I go. Well, I watched YouTube videos in the beginning to learn the basic techniques, and then I've kind of just went with it. So I think my first one I do want to keep about this size, my largest size. So what I'll do is I'll bake this end so you guys can see it, because you can't really see it. So I'll get this in the oven right now. And it's a thick slice, but it's a distorted end. And I'm actually really happy with it because I can see it. And then this, oh, I just got some red from my blade on there. This, I'm going to take a hunk of. A good size hunk, because the other ones we're going to reduce down more and it'll get longer. And I'm going to keep this. Look how pretty it is. You guys can't see it very well. Love it. Yep. I'll bake the end, even though the end does not look as good as the center does. But, you know what? Maybe I'll take a little center slice. And bake that too, just so you can see it. Because that's a really, really, really pretty one. Can you see it there? Nice and delicate. I'll get this in the oven. And then I'm going to keep reducing down this part. So again, in the center, I like to have 2 or 3 sizes, but in the project I plan on using the bigger size. But for future projects, I love translucent canes. Love translucent canes for seams, on when you're merging 2 different veneers together on a pendant, like we do a lot. One half, it looks like something, and the other half looks like something else. I love putting translucent canes there. Again, it's not summertime for me, so I'm kind of out of flower mode, because I like making flower canes. I don't really like kaleidoscopes. I don't really like the way they look. Actually, I don't mind the way they look, but I don't just see how I'm going to use that much of it. I make 1 or 2 of one pendant. But these are kind of universal. I can use these all the time on different things. Because I don't make pendants to sell. So then I'll take a hunk of this. Yeah, it's not distorting at all. You guys can see it. Really wish you could. Hang on, when I bake it, you'll see it. And then I'll take this one and reduce it down even smaller. Probably not much smaller than that. You lose the detail the smaller you go. So super complex canes, you don't want to reduce down very small because you just lose it. So what, this took about an hour to make all of this? Not too bad, I don't think. Okay, so let me go bake these fast. I'm only going to bake them for about 15 minutes because I'm not using it in a project, but I want to be able to show it to you in all its true glory. I think what I'll do so you can see it is I'll lay it on some blue. That good slice. I mean, it's still quite thick too. Can you see it now? Super pretty, huh? So I'll bake this, and I'm going to bake the end one too. I usually always bake the ends. That's what I put in that book. So it helps me remember if I ever need something for a project. I'm like, oh yeah, I made a cane like that. But, you know, it's definitely distorted. So anyways, let me get this in the oven for just like 10 or 15 minutes just to be able to have it go translucent. I'll be right back. Okay, it's still really hot, but I just baked it enough for you to be able to see it. Isn't that beautiful? I think it's cute. Got a little bit of fat white there and a little bit there. It might just be when I stretched it. I distorted it a little bit with my fingers after I sliced it, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with that. And if yours comes out anything like that too, you should be pretty happy as well. So we're going to be using this in a project soon. And, yeah. That's pretty much about it for this flower cane. Translucent flower cane. Okay, I will see you guys next time.